Hi guys, it's Victoria Henrietta. Thank you for joining me for an episode of the V-Word Show. Today's show is all about motherhood and mental health and the sort of difficulties with anxiety or, not feeling yourself after having a baby. I've got 3 very yummy mummies on my panel today, so I'd like to introduce them. If we start with you, Samantha.
Hi, I'm Samantha. I've got an 8-month-old little boy called George and a husband called Jared as well.
Lovely. Hayley.
Hi, I'm Hayley from Derby. I'm 26 years old and I've got a little girl called Elodie who's 9 months.
And I'm Sherry, I'm 28 from Nottingham, and this is my baby girl Emily. She'll be 7 weeks next week.
Yeah, you're doing amazing just for getting out of the house at 7
Thank
weeks. I don't even think I'd managed to leave the house at that point, so that's wicked. Ladies, my girls are 6 and 3, so I've got Eve who's 6 and Estelle who's 3. So those are my children. What I thought I'd start with today is a little kind of whiteboard activity. It's the teacher in me coming out again. What I'd like you to do, please, is just write one word to describe your feelings with the question that I give you. So the first one is, please, how did you feel when you first found out you were pregnant? Okay, so we'll start with you, Hayley.
So I was nervous. When I first found out I was pregnant, I wasn't planned. It wasn't planned at all. I was alone and I just felt nervous. I didn't know what to expect.
And what about you?
Surprised because we wasn't planning, so it was a complete shock when I missed my period and my husband didn't believe me. So yeah, that was all fun.
What about you, Sherry?
I went with ecstatic.
Lovely.
So our baby was planned and it happened a lot quicker than we'd anticipated. We thought it was going to be like a year and it was 2 months. So yeah, I was really, really happy.
Yeah, that's amazing. And mine is actually the same word as yours. I had ecstatic as well. Our baby was planned. We were very much in the same situation as you, actually, that we thought it'd probably take a lot longer the first time around, and it didn't. I think it took like a month or 2. And then the second time, she wasn't an accident. It was very much a decision in that moment. And then a week later, when I started having night sweats, I was like, oh no. He was like, that's baby sweat. And I was like, yeah. And then we were pregnant. I fell pregnant in Amsterdam on my 30th birthday.
Oh, wow.
So I can remember it very well. So that's, yeah. So second question, how did you feel during your pregnancy? So I'm going to kick off with this one because I think I've made up a word which I feel should be added to the English dictionary, and it is whaleistic. I literally waddled around feeling like a whale all of the time, feeling really heavy and gross, like dragging myself around. I mean, I've always been like a plus size woman and thicker set, and when I fell pregnant with my first, I was already heavier than sort of my normal weight, and by the end I was like 20.5 stone and I was absolutely massive. When I look back at videos, I'm like because I was just so chunky and like it was very difficult. So both times I just felt really gross and massive and just tired and heavy. So let's go with you next.
I felt nervous. I think mainly because I wasn't really talking to my parents at the time, and obviously normally they're the most important people that you go to, especially for advice with my mum. So yeah, I was nervous really to what to expect, and because normally I plan things like this. I hadn't had any planning, I hadn't looked at any books or anything. I felt like I just knew nothing, and yeah.
So you're a bit of a planner normally?
Yeah, so I normally, especially with holidays and things, so that was fun when I met my husband because he's so spontaneous, so he books anything like last minute and he's like, oh, shall we just go here? Whereas I'm like, oh, okay, when are we doing this? Like, when are we going for dinner, or when are we going on this date or whatever? So yeah, we're a bit different in that area. So when I found out I was having a baby, I thought, oh my goodness, like, never expected this. Because obviously you take the risk, don't you? But then I think sometimes, oh, it's never going to happen to me. Like, I'll never get pregnant. Like, it's not going to happen. So then, yeah, when you miss the period and
you're like,
you see it,
yeah.
I think especially because I'd been there before, as a woman, I've worried and I thought, oh, I'm pregnant, Jared, I'm pregnant. And he'd be like, no, you're not. And I'd take the million tests and then they'd all say negative. So then when this time came around, he was like, you're not pregnant, we're not going to buy another pregnancy test. I was like, no, I legit think I am pregnant.
Listen to me.
Yeah, I was like, look, I'll just buy a cheap one. I was like, if it's negative, it's negative. And he was like, right, okay. So I just went in, just bought like £1 pregnancy test, took it, and then, yeah. pregnant.
No, I need to buy a more expensive one now because I
Yeah.
don't trust this £1
Yeah.
test. We
Yeah.
bought Tesco value, like blue stripe ones the second time around. Dale was like, you're not pregnant. Oh, sorry, the first time around actually, you're not pregnant. And I was like, oh no, I'm sure I am. We did loads of tests actually because I could tell straight away, and then eventually they all came up negative, and eventually it came up positive. I was like, I told you. What about you, Sherry?
I felt exhausted. Yeah, so I've always been quite a busybody. I was really active before, doing like marathon running and things. So I got to about 8 weeks, and yeah, I was just tired all the time, which is just so unlike me. So yeah, definitely exhausted.
What about you, Hayley?
I was excited. So initially I was nervous, but once that passed, I started to get more and more excited the further along I went. So the more I felt her move inside of me, and just little moments like that, I just became more and more excited, especially for labour. Don't know why. I was watching million and one videos from labour. My husband wouldn't watch any of them because it just freaked him out. But yeah, made me excited.
Yeah, that's crazy because I think it is a bit of a double-edged sword with labour and stuff. People are like, no, I'm going to be great, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, or they're really scared. You kind of don't get anywhere in the middle, and it often isn't what you expect at all. Describe to me how you felt just after having baby, sort of within the first 48 hours. And Sherry, I'm so impressed with your multitasking skills. She's got a baby, she's feeding, writing on her board. We'll start with you, Sherry, actually.
Okay, I've got a trend going on. They all begin with E so far. So I've got euphoric.
Ah, I love that word. Great word.
It's just, it's indescribable. When they passed her through and put her on my chest, it's just, I'll never ever forget that moment.
Yeah.
It's just everything sort of lifted and she was there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the best word.
Oh, I love that. What about you?
I love that. So I put overwhelmed. I felt 1,000,001 feelings at once. I can't really describe how I felt. Obviously I was happy, but just, 1,000,001 feelings all at once, and it just felt a bit overwhelming.
And it's really shocking actually because you're like, oh, there's an actual baby here, like what do I do now? It's just such a strange feeling. What about you, Samantha?
I put love. I think obviously when you meet your partner you think, oh, I'm completely in love, but this is just a completely different type of love. And when I'd look at George I'd think, oh my goodness, like this is the meaning of love. And yeah, so I just felt I was in complete awe of him, and I just couldn't stop staring at him, and I should have been sleeping but I was just looking at him, and yeah.
I've put delirious because I was just so tired, especially after the first, I mean both were pretty epic, but after Eve I had to stay in because I was having a C-section and I had gestational diabetes and I hadn't slept. It was really hard, you know, people uncomfortable in and out of bed all night, so I hadn't slept for sort of a couple of days before I had the C-section. Then I couldn't sleep after, obviously, because baby was just crying all the time and I was in so much pain, and I just remember being absolutely like literally hallucinating, like what is going on, where am I, who is this little baby, like what's happening. And I guess actually same as you, quite overwhelmed. I think it's nice actually today we've got quite a balanced panel because we've got two mummies who weren't necessarily trying to get pregnant, and we've got two mummies who did try, so that's a good balance. But you know, I did try and I felt delirious, and you know, not saying that these are negative words, but they're more negative than euphoric and
Love.
But you do feel all of these things no matter what your sort of pregnancy story is, so that's a good thing to note. This last one, what I'll ask you to do please is describe how you felt a while after the baby had turned up. So it could be weeks, could be months. I know you don't have many weeks, so maybe you feel different now to the start, but yeah, one word to describe that please. I said complete. So literally, I'm one of those girls who, from like 6 years, I was like, I'm gonna get married and have babies. I'm gonna do this, and I've always been very maternal. Whenever there's a baby around, I'm like, can I hold the baby? Can I hold the baby? Ever since I was little, and I think I wanted children. Met my partner, had a baby, and finally I was like, oh, this is everything I've always ever wanted, and it's here. And although a lot of the time I'm moaning, and I'm like, oh, these children, where can we get rid of them to, because I want to go out, or I just want to have a good night's sleep. Actually, they do make me complete, and they are what I've always wanted. So, Samantha?
I put overwhelmed. I think initially when you've got this newborn, you're you are in this bubble, you're kind of protected from everybody else, and you're just enjoying this moment with your family. And then obviously as the months go by, you are scrolling through social media, you are comparing yourself to other mums, you're comparing maybe what they're doing, and then I think that's when the overwhelm kind of kicked in for me, because I thought, oh gosh, I'm not doing this with George, should I be doing this with George? Or it'd be something silly like, I'm not even giving him water yet, should I introduce water? And and I think sometimes those things can kind of bombard you when
completely.
necessarily they shouldn't really.
Yeah, and it's so difficult, even, you know, not as a mum, it's really easy to get kind of sucked into that comparison, like, oh, am I doing this thing right, or should I be doing this, or look at this person, she looks so beautiful, or she's travelling so much, or whatever it is, and wishing that you were more like them. But actually, you know, we do have to try and be a bit more sort of internalised and focus on ourselves and what we're doing. It's just so very difficult, isn't it? Sherry?
Happy.
Hey.
Honestly, I was happy before, but it's a whole other thing. As soon as she was here, I just felt more me. I put in a post on Instagram recently, basically saying that she has made me the me I've always wanted to be.
Lovely.
And just it's incredible, the most amazing thing ever. And I've not stopped smiling since she's been here. So
Oh, I love that.
happy,
Good.
probably, yeah.
Perfect. Hayley?
So I put protective.
Yeah.
So I could have probably put 2. I could have probably put love and protective. Just want to do everything for her and just wrap her up in bubble wrap and just keep her safe. And the world outside can be really scary sometimes, especially more so when you've got a baby and a newborn. So yeah, I would just say that overwhelming sense of I need to protect this little bundle.
I've written that on my board because I want to come back to that later,
Okay,
because that's something I want to discuss during our conversation about being protective and those sort of overwhelming feelings that kick in during but massively after pregnancy. So last thing we're going to do on the board, you've only got 30 seconds. Sherry, I might give you an extra 5 or 10 seconds. I want you to just draw a very quick, it can be a stick drawing if you like, very quick drawing of you at your most sort of anxious self after baby had come, maybe anxious or low or whatever it is, and just maybe give them a little accessories, maybe a baby's bottle or whatever you want, and I'm going to ask you to talk us through your little image. Okay, so actually I'm going to do it properly and time us. And remember, you've only got 30 seconds. Go. Okay, I mean, we've got 38 seconds, so we'll call it there. Finish your little bit. I'll kick off if you've got any, want to finish off your scribbles. I have drawn myself with really messy hair because I just felt like a tramp all the time. Like literally, have I had a shower today? Have I brushed my teeth? Have I brushed my hair? I've got some Zs coming up because I was always tired. Massive boobs because I was nursing and they were just full of milk all the time. And a big saggy belly because it was just there and hanging down and in my way, and every time I looked in the mirror I was like, oh my god, this is not how I should look. And yes, and I've given myself some nice big bags and some tears because a lot of the time, well, I was just very emotional up and down with how I was feeling. I was very happy that baby was here and loved her, but definitely my emotions were very much on a roller coaster. And I've done, again, half a happy face and half a sad face for that same reason.
So if I'd thought about it more in detail like you, I probably would have changed the facial expressions, but I did a picture of me breastfeeding, LOD, and then a bottle, and then people around. My number one time when I felt anxious was through the breastfeeding, so I'm still doing it now, but in the beginning it was really hard, it was really tough, took a toll on me emotionally. And yeah, I don't think it's talked about enough, and I was discouraged against using formula from midwives. But I ended up going against their advice, combi feeding. Also, I put the people because breastfeeding in public is a whole other situation that just made me feel really nervous.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. What about you, Sherry?
So I've gone with...
Do you want me to hold it up?
Yes, please. Oh, you didn't
Yes, Mummy, I know what you're going to say.
So with her being born in December, obviously you've got Christmas parties and things like that.
What date was she born?
4th of December.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you see all your family over at Christmas, and there was just one time that I went over to my auntie and uncle's house, and basically the whole family was there, and a lot of them hadn't met her before, So watching my daughter get passed around like a pasta parcel, that made me feel, yes, you didn't like it either, did you? Oh no. That was probably the lowest point that I've had, and it was just because, yeah, it was that protective thing, and it just, there were some people there I didn't know, I'd never met before, wanting to just hold her. It's like everyone was like, oh, it's my turn, it's my turn. And yeah, I got home and I cried because it was just so overwhelming for both me and for her.
And it's like that internal voice that, oh, I shouldn't be that bothered, but I really am.
Yeah.
And then kind of trying to talk yourself out of this, and it's just, it's a very difficult kind of scenario. What about you, Samantha?
Excuse my drawing, I'm not a very good drawer.
Let me hold it up a little bit more so you can see it.
So I drew a picture of myself basically sitting on the sofa with a bit of dinner, breastfeeding George, because that's what I felt like the majority of time consisted of, me trying to eat my dinner while trying to feed George every time I wanted to eat. Obviously he wanted to eat, so I mean we did find a really good routine and it was great, but yeah, initially that's what we was doing.
Yeah,
so
it's just, you're all consumed by baby, no matter what it is. It's just like changing nappies or feeding or cleaning bottles or doing this. Like there's just no escaping it, and especially in the beginning when they're just crying all the time, you don't necessarily know their cues to start with. It takes a couple of weeks to really know them inside out. And it's just such a tricky time. So thank you for that, ladies. I'm going to move on to sort of asking you some questions now. So we'll start with you, Sherry, if that's all right.
Yeah.
What I'd like to know is, how was your pregnancy and labour?
So I always feel guilty when I talk about my pregnancy, and it's mainly because I hated it. And I know that there's so many people out there that would want to be in my position. It was pretty textbook. I had no major issues whatsoever. So I should feel grateful that it was fine, but I just did not like being pregnant. I didn't like how it made me feel. But labour, weirdly enough, I loved it. Absolutely loved the experience. I thought it was incredible, feeling the body change and adapt. It was long. It was like 4 days long.
Oh gosh, wow.
But yeah, just how your body just adapts to bring your child to you, and the changes in your contractions. It was just phenomenal. Really made me feel like a superhero, it really did. So labour I loved, pregnancy I hated.
And it's fascinating, isn't it, that your body can do, like, this is exactly what we were made for, which is just lovely. What about you, Hayley?
So initially in pregnancy I hated it because I had quite bad morning sickness. I was just sick all the time, couldn't keep down water, couldn't keep down anything, so it made me quite ill. The middle bit of pregnancy, so the second trimester, I really loved. Started getting a bum, grew really attached to my bum, loved it. Third part, I was just over it.
It's like that, isn't it? This is not so bad. Oh no, I don't like it again.
Yeah. So labour I was actually really excited about. I think I've mentioned it before. And then I was over it because I started having contractions on the Saturday, and then I didn't end up giving birth until the Wednesday.
Oh wow.
So it's a long time. I was so dead against epidurals originally, just because I'd heard of all these horror stories. So I tried to go as long as I could without an epidural. I think that was my biggest mistake because I did not cope well on gas and air, just didn't agree with me.
Well, to be honest, it's like the most horrendous pain you're ever going to feel in your whole life. So there's no surprise that you were like, this is too much.
So then I went for an epidural, and I wish I'd done it sooner, because as soon as I did that, I could relax, and I just enjoyed it so much more. And I could have a laugh, and I just enjoyed it. And then at the pushing stage and actually getting her out, I just felt amazing, really amazing, because of what the body can do, and I can't wait to do it again. Which sounds really weird, and I'd probably, like, close to the time I'd be getting more nervous because you know what it feels like then. But yeah, I loved it.
Oh good. And did you have any drugs during your labour?
I did, yeah. So I managed to get to 7 centimetres just on paracetamol. I was really proud of that.
Epic. Yeah.
But it was because it had just been so long and I was so tired. It got to just the stage where they started feeling just too much for me. I think because it had been already like 3 days by that point. I had diamorphine. And I had 2 diamorphine injections, and then it got to the point where her heart rate kept dropping and they lost it for 2 minutes. So doctors had to come in, take like a blood from the top of her head to test her oxygen levels. I may have needed a C-section had they have come back very minuscule less. And I was on gas and air whilst they were doing that, because they told me it was going to be really uncomfortable. But then I had a bad reaction. I think the 2 mixed together, the diamorphine wearing off and then gas and air. Because then I sort of unconsciously woke up thinking I'd delivered her and she was stillborn.
Oh gosh.
So I was like in hysterics,
Oh my
crying,
God.
thinking that like it actually happened. And then I just had to have like local anaesthetics in. It was forceps delivery and an episiotomy as well. And then the horrible thing that no one tells you about is the pain relief they put up your bum.
Oh, I never had any.
never
Where's
had
my pain relief
You
on
don't
my
have
bum?
that?
Thank you. I didn't get
now
any
I'm
of
feeling
that.
this is not normal, right? Yeah, I don't know if that's just if you have an episiotomy, but I
Yeah.
also had that thing. I think it's called like a pudendal, which is
Okay, a pudendal.
a pudendal. So yeah, quite a lot of drugs in the
Yeah.
end. But yeah, again, I wouldn't change it. And like you, I want to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. What about you, Samantha?
My pregnancy was kind of like Sherry's, like textbook pregnancy. I didn't have any complications or anything like that. I think I was in two minds. I wasn't in love with being pregnant, but equally I didn't dislike it. I kind of just embraced it and just thought, it's what it is, I'm pregnant. Yeah, I kind of craved carbs and things initially in the first trimester. But other than that, the cravings kind of wore off after about 12 weeks. So that was good, and then I was just carrying on as normal. My labour, well, George came on his due date, which was really...
Perfect.
But I wasn't expecting it really. I did think he was going to come overdue because the day before I was in Nottingham actually until like 10 o'clock at night watching my husband play football, not doing anything else. And then I just got home and I felt fine and I thought, oh, okay, I'll sleep on the sofa tonight. And then, yeah, my waters broke at 2 and George came at about 24 minutes past 6. So it was all a bit quick.
Yeah.
So I'm very nervous for labour again. I will admit I'm not over that. I'm not thinking I want to go through it again at the minute, but I know in due course time I will. But yeah, it was good. It went really fast, and then I got rushed to theatre because they couldn't find George's heartbeat because the cord was around his neck, which they didn't know at the time. And they said, I might have to potentially have a C-section if we can't deliver him with forceps. But luckily they did, so that was good. So yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was good. But yeah, I'm just nervous for next time.
Yeah, no, it is one of those nerve-wracking things, and it's in a way it's better because you know what to expect, but then in the other way it's not worse because you know what to expect.
Yeah.
The first time around I had a C-section, so it was very chilled. She was breech and I had gestational diabetes, so I think it's called an ECV, I can't remember the full terminology now, but they literally physically try and manipulate her around, which was quite painful, it didn't work. And then they kept chopping and changing their mind, which was making me really anxious. Oh, you can have a C-section. Oh, but if we can turn her, you have natural delivery. Oh, she might flip by herself, so if she does, you'll go in for natural delivery. And I'm thinking, I'm literally psyching myself up for a C-section. Well, for a natural, then a C-section, then this and that. And it was making me feel just really overwhelmed because I didn't know what was going to happen. In the end, I had a C-section. It was really chill because it was planned. Literally sat in, got the spinal, everything was calm. She came, she didn't even cry as she came out. She was just so calm, just the most beautiful little thing. Loved it. My pregnancy was more difficult first time around because I was overweight and had gestational diabetes, so I was doing things like having my breakfast, going to work and like almost falling asleep at the wheel. I was just exhausted all the time and very up and down with my mood and sort of my blood sugar, so I'd be fine one second then like literally slumped in a heap on the table the next. Second time around I'd lost quite a lot of weight. It was a much easier pregnancy in terms of my mobility and how I felt in myself, and then I had Eve anyway to run around with as well, so I didn't really have the opportunity to relax, so it was a lot better. But then I had a natural delivery the second time because I always wanted to have a natural delivery and I thought I'd be great. Wasn't that great. It was 27 hours. On Christmas Eve I was like, oh, my tummy feels funny. I was like, you're fine, don't worry about it. I was like, no guys, honestly I think she's going to come. She was due on the 28th of December. I hadn't been sleeping that great anyway, just generally because of pregnancy life. And then it was Christmas, so I'd be up prepping food and wrapping presents. On Christmas Eve I went to bed about 1 a.m. because we've been wrapping presents, and I think about 10 to 2 my waters went. Then I went to hospital quite soon after because my contractions were quite strong, and they were like, you need to go home. I had a panic attack. I was like, oh, I can't go home. It's Christmas Day. What's my daughter? She can't open her presents with me like this. And I was just an absolute shambles, and they were like, look, calm down, you can get in the bath. So I went in the bath for a few hours. It really calmed down my contractions. I was due to have a water birth, but someone else was using it, so I couldn't in the end. And then I went back in. I was like, the contractions are coming on a lot harder now. They examined me. She's like, oh, I'm really glad you can stay in now. We can get you in a bed because you're however many centimetres dilated. I thought I was going to have to send you home, and I was thinking, thank God. To be honest, now I can't even remember all of the ins and outs, but had to have an epidural. Then, because I'd been in labour for quite a while and I was already really tired, and they were concerned that I wouldn't be able to push when the time came. And then the epidural slowed my contractions. Then they didn't want to give me an induction because I was a VBAC mother, and the risks that go along with having a natural delivery after a C-section. But they gave me one anyway because my contractions had slowed. Eventually I was pushing, nothing happened. They tried to get me about forceps, and I could feel it. That's why I say the epidural had failed. I was like, ow! The doctor was like, that doesn't hurt. You've had an epidural. And I'm thinking, it's my vagina, love. I can tell what hurts and what doesn't. And she wasn't very nice to me, the doctor, at all. And then she's like, right, you're going to have to go for a C-section. I was like, no, because my recovery from C-section last time was not good. They gave me a spinal, and they were like, do you know what, we'll give you one more try with forceps. So then they gave me the episiotomy, a sound that is still in my nightmares, the shing, shing of like the sharpest blades cutting me open. And then they got her out with forceps in the end. So I had the episiotomy, and it was a lot quicker, and actually my recovery was quicker, although difficult as well. So that was my kind of labour and pregnancy stories, both very different from each other. So it's interesting that you mentioned about the stillbirth kind of feeling, because I found natural labour really traumatic. Like, I literally couldn't talk about it for a couple of weeks without just bursting into tears, because it was horrible. How did you find that experience?
To be fair, I told people the day after. I think it was just, that's the only negative part of it all, but it made up her getting to me, if that makes sense. Like, it's just that's how it was supposed to happen. Looking back on it now, I feel like it's more traumatic, because telling people, they're like, oh my God, how did you manage that? But it just happened. I wasn't really fully aware of it happening. It was almost a bit like, I describe it as being an inception.
Right.
So I was awake in a nightmare that I wasn't entirely sure if it was real. It was only until after I asked the midwife, did that really happen? She was like, yeah, but it's not the worst we've seen.
Right.
And then I think because it didn't really happen and I was okay, I think that's allowed me to get over it.
And focus on baby, I suppose, in the moment.
Well, yeah, I didn't have time to dwell when she was here.
Yeah, because some of the statistics say some of the most common mental health problems, I got these from mentalhealth.org.uk, the most common mental health problems experienced during pregnancy and afterbirth are anxiety, depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. So I imagine something like that could be, for a woman, something that could cause PTSD quite naturally, because that is, thinking that your baby has passed away with stillborn is, could be very traumatic. And it says it's normally about 30 women in 1,000 who get PTSD after having a baby. So quite shocking statistics, really, because that's a lot of women out there, and realistically it's quite likely that you wouldn't even know that you have PTSD, or you're just thinking, oh, this is just normal, what happens after having a baby, and there's probably a lot of women out there who are struggling. So really, if you feel like you are struggling, you should just speak to someone, speak to your health visitor or your other half or a friend or someone who can either guide you in the right direction. Or what I'd like to know, Samantha, from you, is what you found that you struggled the most with in kind of mum life.
I think the main thing was my new identity, really, because I'd always, obviously, I'd done everything for myself, me and my husband. I used to go to the gym a lot. I used to obviously meet up with friends and things like that. And obviously, when you add a baby into the mix of things change, and the things you do change, the timings of things, and when you can actually leave the house and you make plans, and then sometimes you can't make those plans. So I think for me it was the struggle of that. Maybe not so initially when George was newborn, but I think now, in this moment in time, that's what I'm struggling with the most.
And George is how old again, remind me?
He's 8 months old now.
Yeah.
Because before, if anybody spoke about work, I'd be like, no, I never want to go back to work and things like that. But whereas now I think it would actually be good for me to go back to work.
And be you a little bit, and not just be me and baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am quite looking forward to actually going back in May, even though it is twice a week. But I think that would be really good for me to just separate and just have that time. And equally, I think it would be great for George to go to nursery and bond with other children as well. So.
Totally. And it's really important to note that your mental health can be affected in the moment or before. It could be months after. We just have to be so mindful of how we're feeling and trying to be kind of open with it, because it's really easy to close up. For me, when my my anxiety's bad, because I've suffered with anxiety for many years. For me, it was a loss of control after my first, just because I'm such a controlling person. Like, I want everything done a specific way, and I want it done like this, and this is too loud, or this is that, and I get really sort of like overwhelmed when I feel out of control. And that's something I've really had to work on, especially now with having more children in the house. I have to consciously try to let go of that control and be aware that I don't have to be in control all the time. But after having baby, you know, being so tired and then thinking about what I'm going to wear to breastfeed or to go out of the house, or like you say, people coming over, like we've got a big family, people coming over, kids screaming, things like that. I just felt overwhelmed all the time. And then the protective thing that you were talking about, I just went into full mummy mode. Don't touch her, don't breathe on her, don't do that, just control all the time. And it's taken me a long time to get better at not being so controlling. So that was probably my biggest thing. What about you?
So this is a weird one. Mine would be expectations that I placed on myself, and also that I felt other people placed on you as well. So it's interesting to hear other people's experiences. So Samantha and Sherry both said that when their baby was placed on them, they felt this overwhelming sense of love. It was a bit different for me. I didn't get that feeling, which I feel like everyone seems to have, and no one really seems to talk about if you don't get that feeling. And I feel like even now speaking about it, it feels a bit weird, because I feel like a bad mother for saying that I didn't get that overwhelming sense of love. Like, she was placed on my chest, and yeah, I loved her. She's my baby, but I felt an overwhelming sense of protection, but not that overwhelming sense of love. And I really beat myself up for quite a while, actually, that I didn't get that. But then as the weeks went on, as I found my groove, and as I probably started to ease into motherhood, that love grew, and the little things that she did, I started to love her more and more. And then now it's like nothing that you could ever describe, that love that I have for her. But just, yeah, the expectation that I put on myself of, I need to be doing this is how I should be feeling in this moment, this is how I should be responding to things. The expectation didn't always meet the reality, so...
And it's so good that you're here talking about this. Hopefully a lot of women will watch and think, oh, well, they all had different experiences, and oh, actually I felt bad when I didn't bond with my baby, but actually that's okay, because it is actually normal for that to happen. It's very common. A lot of women experience that, and they probably don't have someone to say, no, it's fine, you know, and to have that conversation. This is why we should be talking about all this kind of stuff, because there's so many other women in our situations at the end of the day. So thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Things I was probably most anxious about, they are your stereotypical, oh, is she breathing? How am I going to cope with being so tired all the time and getting up in the night? Like, am I doing this right? Do the things on the nappy need to be in or out? All the minute
tiny
things. Yeah, you're just like, am I doing it right? Are people going to come over and see me do that and like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that? And then it's going to just beat me down that little bit more. And every question, my biggest thing was with the feeding. So as you can see, Emily is formula fed. We did try breast, and it didn't work out for us. We did it for 2 weeks, 7 days straight, and I was worried that she wasn't getting enough because she was like hungry all the time. She wouldn't latch. Is that my problem? And am I not producing enough? Things like that.
The mummy guilt, I call it, like just constant guilt.
And it got to probably day 7 that she just wouldn't have any in the evening, so I supplemented with formula. And then it was just that fear of judgment that I'm not giving my newborn breast milk. And I had a lot of strangers almost as well. So I'd go to Tesco and, Costa, and I'd get her bottle out and I'd have women looking, or I'd feel like they were looking. It was very much a paranoia almost, that people were judging me for bottle feeding my baby, because there's such a, what's the word, like a desire, a pressure almost to breastfeed, and I couldn't do it. So my anxiety levels to feed my baby in public were through the roof, and it shouldn't have been like that, because
not at all.
It wouldn't be available if it was that bad. And just to not want to feed my baby in public, that was probably my biggest issue.
And it's crazy, isn't it? Because we should be supporting each other. At the end of the day, what works for you and your baby is different to what works for someone else. And if Emily's fed and you're happy, that's the main thing. It doesn't matter about anything else, whether you should be breastfeeding or bottle feeding.
But that's the thing, it affected me emotionally more than it did physically. And it took me a good 4 or 5 weeks to talk about it. And I know had I have pressed any further, I probably would have got postnatal depression. I knew how low and how stressed I was getting. I pinpointed that before it got too far, but I know that there's a lot of people that obviously continue.
And it's so good that you're able to,
Yeah.
you know yourself well enough to think, okay, I need to make a change right now, because I'm sure a lot of women, you know, might not know, or they feel so overwhelmed they can't pinpoint what the thing is that's making them feel like that.
Yeah, and it's probably the fact that there is so much pressure put on to do it, and they're just almost forced to persevere, that it does get to that point where they then do end up with depression over it.
I'd say I was kind of the other way around, because I had a lot of friends and family sort of saying, oh, we just bottle feed, that's what we did, or that's what you should do. So I was the other end, and I was thinking, well, I do kind of want to breastfeed, but maybe I should listen. And you know, I went with my gut, same as what you did, and it worked out for me, and it's worked out for you. So I think that's really important as a mother. Sometimes you are going to need support and you are going to need help, but actually you are mum, you know yourself, you know your baby, and go with your gut. And that's really important, and you know, we should try not to forget that. Do you plan on having more children? Which I think all of you have kind of said yes, but how many kids do you want? Like, what's the plan? Let's start with you, Hayley.
So if you ask my husband, he'd probably say 2, like 1 more at the max. I'd probably say I'd like 3 if I could. We have also talked about potentially adoption, fostering later on.
Lovely.
So we definitely want 1 more for ourselves, but then maybe later on, we'll see. We'll have to definitely change house and just see how it works for us. But yeah, if I could get more, then I will.
Yeah, Sherry?
So I joked with my husband that I'd have enough to make our own football team.
Yes,
And
love
honestly,
that.
I'd do it so many times. Originally, we both wanted 2, but now
She's
definitely.
like, yes, I want to.
Have to wait a little bit. But I've told him that I've probably got 3 in me. I reckon I'd like to go 3.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, we'd do a gender reveal for the next one, and it'd be a boy. And then 3rd one, ideally, we'd do it as a surprise. And then
Yeah.
I've done all 3. But yeah, I think 3, and not
3
too much
seems
of
to
an
be
age
magic.
gap.
Yeah, 3 seems like a magic number. What about you?
My husband says 3, maybe 4.
Yeah.
I say potentially 2.
Yeah.
I'd definitely like another one, and I've said, depending on what the second one's like, we might go for the 3rd one. But my husband would actually like one now, which I've said no.
Yeah.
I was like, not a chance, not yet. Not until at least George is over 2,
Yeah.
for me personally. But yeah, potentially 3, maybe.
Lovely. I would like 3 also. I've always said 4, but now I'm like 3. I've got 2 girls. I'd like to try for a little boy. If I don't get one, I might stop at 3, or I might go for the 4th. We'll see. I've got fairly big age gaps between 2, so 3.5 between my first 2, which I quite liked because it gave me a chance to get back to me, lose weight, go to a few raves, like drink lots of alcohol, do all the things that make me feel more like me, get back to playing basketball before I started again. And I think now I'm sort of more feeling like, oh, I could have another one now. And it's the same, my baby's now 3 years old. I say my baby, she's big now. So that I would like some more. My other half said, I'm too tired, I'm too old, I don't know if I can do it. But I think we will have at least another one. And actually it's funny that you talk about adoption and fostering, because I'm actually foster care as well. So even though I only have 2 biological children, I also have another child who's a foster child in the home. So our house is just manic. So adding another one to the mix, you know, it's going to be even more manic. So we'll see what happens. So what I'd like to finish on is kind of getting an idea of some advice for expecting mums or mums. If someone was watching this video thinking, oh my gosh, this all rings true to me, or, you know, I'd like some advice, what would you say?
I think the main thing for me is to just do you, be you. Don't look at anybody else, don't compare what they're doing. There's no rule book to motherhood at the end of the day, so there's nothing that's the standards for you to be going, I should be doing this, I should be doing this. Like, do it in your own time. And I think some negative effects that people can have on you is when they question you, when they go, oh, you're still doing that, or why are you doing that? Why haven't you moved them yet? But I just think for any new mum out there, just kind of push those comments to the side and just continue with what you're doing, and you know what's best for your baby at the end of the day.
Definitely. Hayley?
Yeah, I'd just echo what Samantha said. Just be comfortable in your decisions. I mean, reach out for help if you want it. Don't be afraid to talk to other people, share experiences, get bits of their things that they do and take it if it feels right for you. But if it doesn't feel right, don't feel afraid to create your own path. It's your baby, it's your family, you know what works best for you, and just try not to beat yourself down too much as well, because mum guilt is real.
Mum guilt is so real. Hashtag mum guilt. I'm definitely hashtagging this video on that. What about you, Sherry?
So again, the same. Definitely talk about it. Like, there is literally nothing stopping you from talking to somebody. There's so many people out there that have been through, not necessarily exactly what you've been through, but there's so many mums in the world. They'll know exactly what you mean. To help me be a bit more positive each day, come up with like my own little mantras that I do. So it's just trying to think of them now, is a moment hated is a moment wasted. Everything's always temporary. Like, you're never going to get yesterday again, so you might as well just try and be stress-free, try and be positive and enjoy it, because I already miss her. Like, she's not a newborn anymore, and seeing how much she's adapted and grown in just that short space of time, I'm glad I've been open and made my decisions how I have, to make me happier going forward for her. And I think that's the important thing. I need to be mentally available, not just physically available for her. So yeah, I think had I needed it, I definitely would have opened up and spoke to it, just so she gets the best start in life.
And I totally agree with that. I think positivity is key. Even if you're not a mum, you're a dad, or you're not a parent, whatever, just trying to be positive and live for now rather than dwelling on things in the past and beating yourself down. So really, I'd echo what you guys are saying. Make sure you're talking, reach out to people, perhaps you've got a good friend, or even if sometimes you might have people around you who you don't really like their advice or their style of delivery or whatever, go on NetsMum or something like that. Go online, find some people on Instagram who you can follow. Like, we'll put our handles on the video. People can follow you guys' accounts and have a look and just get as much of a wide kind of variety to see, so that you can be informed, but also just trust your gut. So always talk and trust your gut is what I would say. So ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to have you. And you, Emily, thank you very much for coming along as well. It's been a really good chat, and I hope that some women are able to watch this video and get some advice or feel some sort of inspiration for their own journey in motherhood. So thank you very much. Thank you guys for watching another episode of the V-Word Show. This was all about motherhood and mental health. Thank you very much for watching. Peace out.